Hello.
Good evening, everybody. We're just saying how important it is to smile. It is important to smile. Just caught me not smiling yet. So we're excited to hop on here tonight. And we want to, it's been a couple of weeks since we've done a live. So we're just glad to get on here. And Rachel and I were just talking, it's so apparent that the constant throughout ministry and the constant over 25 years of working with couples is that the need is great. That just is constant. And we see that both with loved ones that are close to us and people that we meet.
Yeah. If you are struggling in your marriage, we just want you to know you guys are not alone. It is,
Right.
it is so common. In fact, what we would be so daring as to say is that if your marriage hasn't struggled, it's probably going to before it's all said and done, before we're back up in heaven, or before the Lord returns or whatever, because the constant is challenges. The constant is stress, right? The constant is there's turmoil, there's sin, there's all kinds of things. And so we just want you to know that if you are struggling, don't feel shame about it. Don't feel necessarily guilt about it unless you've done something, but we would just want you to know that you're not alone. We were there.
Absolutely.
We struggled.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's so true though, because when you can look back with some perspective and where we were at one time, that for other people, that if they get the right help, that they can really have an amazing story to share, that they can be the beginning of a whole new chapter where things could be even better than before.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. Hey, if you're joining us, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from.
Love to hear from you.
But yeah, we wanted to talk about why just getting a marriage book probably isn't going to help you enough. And that's our caveat. There are so many wonderful marriage books out there.
They're amazing, especially in the Christian world. So many really good books, theologically correct, to guide us in an understanding about what marriage ought to look like. And sometimes it does provide a lot of great tools. And in the right context, it can really bring a lot of help. Mm-hmm. But why does it not always help enough?
Well, because of blind spots, we think that's the biggest one. Because have you ever read a book, or have you ever listened to a sermon, or maybe you read an article or a blog or something, and you're like, oh, so-and-so needs to read this, so-and-so needs to hear this, so-and-so needs to, and you can always see it in the other person, but it's so much harder to see it in yourself, the blind spots.
It's so true. And if you don't believe me, case in point, it's really easy to look at your spouse and see their faults and not your own, right? So is it possible that you could see the blinds, you'd have blind spots about yourself and you can see the faults in your spouse and not see it in yourself? If that's true, isn't it also possible that as a couple, you could also have significant blind spots that you simply can't see? The two of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and here's further proof of it, guys. We can't even see our own sin sometimes. Like we, as a new Christian, even, you're not even aware biblically about different types of things being sin. As you grow in Christ, you grow in grace, you become more aware of your own sin. But the scriptures are very clear over and over again about instructing us when a brother is caught in sin, the implication being they don't even see it. So if it's true that others can be caught in sin, it's definitely true that we could be caught in sin, both as individuals and as a couple. And that's definitely one of the reasons why people have blind spots, and reading a book is not going to help them draw out those blind spots because there's no finger to really point at them, right?
It's so true. And it doesn't even necessarily just have to be sin. It could even just be some quirkiness that drives your spouse crazy. It could be some little habit.
Does that happen?
Some habit that you have that maybe is just, if you could see what you're doing, or if you could see how you make that person feel, or if you could see how that came across, if you had somebody that could help kind of point that out, so much more could come about.
Yeah, we absolutely needed that at one point.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. We believe that every marriage needs help at some point or another, and probably it should get help, multiple times so that you can grow and you can get better and you can get over this stuff. So not just not being able to see our own sins and our own faults and our own quirkiness or whatever it might be. But another reason why blind spots are a big problem is because dysfunction is probably normal to you. And what we mean by that is
absolutely.
What do they say? They say, every family is dysfunctional. I mean, or we put the fun in dysfunctional or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, we all have our issues and our struggles and stuff. And so if dysfunction feels normal to you,
well, no, it's not that. I'm sorry, Rich. It's not that it just feels normal. It is normal because that's how you operate.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
It is normal, but yeah.
It is normal to you. It's not normal to other people, but
Yeah.
it is to you and maybe your spouse. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to. I want to clarify that.
That's true.
Maybe that was some dysfunction between us. I'm not sure. But
maybe it was just that quirky habit that you have of interrupting me, not really listening. Just kidding. Yeah. But you're right. You're right. Because dysfunction can totally be normal to you. And it's like, and if you grow up that way, like if your mom was always just like flying off the handle or like just menopausal or you know, I should say premenopausal around and just would scream and yell at certain times of the month, or, you know, or if it was just normal for your dad to be withdrawn or angry or, you know, apathetic.
That's what you knew.
That's totally normal for you to act in that way. And I remember when we were first married, you know, it was normal for your family. You had a mom that stayed home, you had a dad that worked. And so the roles were very clearly defined. And for my family, both of my parents worked. So both of them helped around the house. And so, you know, we sort of went into marriage thinking, well, this is how it's going to be the way I grew up. And we had to really, it did clash a lot. And so, you know, not necessarily that either one was dysfunction, you know, per se, but if it is dysfunctional, it's going to feel normal to you. It is going to be normal to you. Yeah. And in fact, you can even build dysfunction into your own marriage over time. So you can get into these habits of, you know, playing the cold shoulder or not speaking to each other for 2 or 3 days or 4 days or punishing each other by withholding sex or affection or, you know, whatever. And so you can kind of build that over time.
And it might be like 5 years or 10 years or 20 or 30 years of that same dysfunction. And it's completely normal to you.
Yes.
But it isn't normal.
No, it's not normal. It's not biblical. And guess what? The good news is it doesn't have to stay that way. Like we're here to tell you, like you can break generational curses. You can break dysfunctional patterns. You can have a completely new marriage. Even if for 10, 20, 30 years, it's been this way, you can make a change. Like that's the cool thing. Right.
You're absolutely right about that. You can make that change, but it sometimes will, I mean, almost always is going to take someone calling out that dysfunction. You know, you're not even going to be able to see it because it's so normal.
Yeah.
And you've built it up in your marriage for, even if it was only 2 years, it's become normal.
Right.
You know, and those ruts are laid and they're laid deep in your relationship at that point.
So then once you get into that dysfunction and you start to feel withdrawn or disconnected or just there's a lot of conflict or whatever it might be for you, all of a sudden now we're going to start to cope with that, right? What are we going to use? Are we going to take is it going to be a few more drinks every night? Are we going to be coping with just numbing ourselves? Are we going to be coping with, fantasy or, pornography or romance novels or whatever? How are we going to escape from this pain? Because when there's pain at home, it's so hard to focus at work. It's so hard to focus on, building your career or serving the Lord or doing the things that we know deep down we're called to do. And if this isn't right, it's like, well, we got to numb that pain somehow. Right. So maybe you're going to overwork. Maybe you're just going to be a workaholic or
could be a lot of
whatever.
Things,
so I mean, that dysfunction always leads to some kind of coping mechanism we've found. And that can lead to even more problems, obviously.
So in other words, what you're saying is, and just to stack on it, dysfunction is leading to further dysfunction.
Yeah.
It might just be personal dysfunction, but it's dysfunction nonetheless.
Absolutely.
And we see that a lot with people that we talk to, that dysfunction has led to not only deeper ruts, but other types of dysfunction. And all of them have become normalized because that's your experience and that's what you guys do. And it might even look like, in my opinion, if you see, if you have that dysfunction for years, it's been going on, it is going to continue to, that the coping stuff is going to itself grow into this monster potentially.
Sure.
Such that sometimes when I talk to couples, they'll say our problem in our marriage is this dysfunction, like my husband drinks too much. That's not the main problem. That's a huge dysfunction, but that is a huge blind spot for you to even call out one dysfunction, maybe in the other person, and you're not seeing the bigger picture there. That's a microcosm piece, tiny piece of the larger dysfunctions. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, because it's probably more than likely a symptom of the problem.
Exactly.
The real problem is there's some kind of a heart issue. There's, so we've got to get underneath and figure that out. And those blind spots are there. You know what I mean? You've got to have somebody come along. How many times in the Bible does it say one another, right? Love one another, bear up with one another. Like, we need one another. We don't just need us. We need other people in our life. And honestly, in the church today, it's hard to have that close connection. It's hard to have somebody you can trust, which is why so often people turn to counselors, or, they find a program that will work or whatever, because you've got to have somebody who can walk with you on that difficult road, because we need that.
Right.
We need that to help us uncover those blind spots.
Absolutely. And I think you're so right about that, Rach. And we could do a whole lot just about dysfunction itself. I mean, that's a topic unto itself. But thank you, Rach. I appreciate that you agreed there. It's interesting that we've already alluded to this, but another reason why it's reading a book isn't just going to help is that we in general just tend to blame the other person. If we're only talking about in our own minds, or even what we're saying to, even to the other person, we just tend to blame. That's how we are. I didn't get married to be alone. I agree with you, Rachel. That's exactly right. But we find a lot of people that I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people, they start off on the call pointing at the other person. And when that's the case, and which is natural, that we tend to blame the other person. If they were to only do this or do that or adjust this or treat me this way, then everything's going to be fine. And because we tend to do that, we will have blind spots, and reading a book is simply not going to help. And in addition to that, what we found quite a bit is that people tend to blame not just the other person, but they tend to blame the circumstances. It's like, oh, I can have a little bit of relief there to think, oh, maybe the things are falling apart in my marriage because of COVID.
Right.
And that isn't reality, is it?
No, well, no, COVID could probably exacerbate the problem. Right. But honestly, you can have two people in the exact same circumstances and they can react completely differently to their circumstances. It's not what happens to you. It's the meaning you make of it and what you do with it, right? I heard about these twins that were raised in an alcoholic home. Their father beat them. He yelled at them. He was awful to them. And one of them grew up. And guess what? He became an alcoholic father. And they said to him, well, what happened to you? How did you end up this way? And he said, well, my dad was an alcoholic father. He beat me. What else could I do? The other twin, he grew up, and they said to him, well, what happened to you? And he turned out to be a wonderful father, a wonderful husband. And they said, well, how did this happen? You had this alcoholic father. He said, I had an alcoholic father. What else could I do? I didn't want to be that. So it's like the exact same circumstances.
Yes.
Exactly. So we can't blame our circumstances. Sure, they can be challenging. Sure, they can be difficult. But even especially in difficult circumstances, that's when you need someone to help you get those blind spots figured out and figure out what are you not seeing? Because if hurt is being built over time in a marriage, it's so easy to just then build this wall up. And then that's when you really do see the blaming going on. Because you're so hurt by how could they, not fight for me, or how could they leave me, or how could they do this to me? How could they breach our trust this way? And then it's like, then it's blame.
And it's almost easier. First of all, you can blame the other person, but it's almost easier to find like an escape route. Like, it's our house burned down, which, that's a terrible thing. Or, we had a car accident, or a kid was hospitalized. You could go on and on about what it was. And guys, I talk to people that say that a lot. They'll get on the phone and say, the problem in our marriage is COVID. They say that to me. I'm like, the problems were there way before COVID. That's the reality. And oftentimes when we have those circumstances that we're blaming, it seems like a little bit of an escape, but it's not reality. And so it's like another path that people will choose because they will blind themselves to what is actually going on. And that's why just another marriage book is not going to help in that type of situation either.
Right.
And then on top of that all, for Christians that are out there, that Satan doesn't want you to see your blind spots. He does not want you to see your sin.
Boy, ain't that true.
And he might even want you to be blaming the other person and blaming the circumstances and not taking ownership for your own sin and passing the buck. And that is just a recipe for disaster when we're cooperating with Satan with what he's telling us
without even knowing that we are.
Oftentimes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because he is a liar. He's a thief. He's come to kill, steal, and destroy. And he's trying to do that to your marriage.
Absolutely.
And so that is why we are here, you guys, because we were there in the pit. We know what that's like. And that loneliness and that bitterness and those feelings that go with it. And the stress that goes with it and what that does to your children and your family. And we know that you can get out of it.
Yes.
So guys, if you are ready, if you're sick and tired of staying there, if you're ready, this is why we've created this free masterclass for you. And it's the 5 shifts our Christian clients make to get a radical turnaround in their marriage. And so we want you to know this is there for you.
Yeah.
We literally created it for you, with you in mind, because this is something we wish we would have had.
And it's not just like we made up some things. We lived this stuff, right?
Yes.
I mean, we went through, we're like not just appearing here talking about marriage because we've been married for 25 years almost, we've also been through hell. We've also been through really dark chapters.
Yes.
And we lay some of that out in the master class too. And so if you guys haven't checked that out, I really would encourage you to do so, because not only does it hint a little bit about our story, but more than that, we share about the turnaround that we got.
Yeah.
And the turnaround that you can have also.
And the turnaround that we've helped others get too.
Absolutely.
So guys, it's available to you. It really comes down to making a decision. Are you sick and tired of staying there? Are you sick and tired of being where you are?
Yeah. And Rachel, I see you had trouble with getting that to open. Send me a private message, or I can try to reach out afterwards, and I can give you a direct link, and hopefully we'll get that nailed down. If anybody has struggle with that, I can do that. I'm going to post a link right now. Hopefully everybody will be able to see that, and you can get that link to go get that free masterclass. But the reality is that, we are helping people powerfully. And, one of our amazing couples, they were just on vacation in the Caribbean with celebrating that they were best friends. That was not what they were saying a few months ago. No. And we just praise God for that. And we know if you're stuck too, that we can help. So check that out. I think it'll be an encouragement to all of you. It might be the best 45 minutes you've ever spent on your marriage. And that's why simply getting a marriage book is not going to help that much. And anything else you want to add, hon?
Just know we're here for you.
Absolutely.
We're rooting for you. And we've been where you are. You're not alone. Okay. So there is hope for your marriage.
Yes. Amen.
We're here to tell you that. So hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday evening.
Yes. God bless you guys. Take care. Bye.